Stella was seconds from being crushed by a Tenton semi-truck when my brother lunged forward, ready to yank her out of harm's way. In my past life, I'd thrown every ounce of strength I had into holding him back, keeping him from reaching her. The truck had shattered both her legs instead. She'd never dance again, and the despair drove her to take her own life. After her funeral, I became the villain of the family, the one who'd stopped him from saving her. Ethan broke my legs, screaming through his rage, "You cold-blooded monster! What gave you the right to stop me from saving Stella?" Mom and Dad slapped me dozens of times, their voices thick with regret. "We never should have brought you back. Stella is our only daughter. You're a vicious, heartless thing. Get out of our house." They refused to treat my broken legs and dumped me in the remote mountain wilderness to fend for myself. In the end, I was torn apart and eaten alive by wild dogs. When I opened my eyes again, I was right back at that moment, me brother surging forward to save the adopted girl. This time, I didn't strain every muscle to hold him back. I just gave the hem of his shirt a feeble tug and cried out, feigning utter terror, "Ethan, don't go." I made a show of trying to stop him, but he never had any intention of listening. He charged forward without hesitation and hauled Stella Hale out of the truck's path. The momentum sent him sprawling onto the pavement, and he threw his arms out instinctively to break his fall. He'd forgotten what a Tenton semi-truck meant. The driver had a massive blind spot. He never would have seen a person on the ground. The truck rolled over him without mercy. A shrill, agonized scream tore from my brother's throat. Splinters of bone and flecks of blood and flesh sprayed across the asphalt. His arms were reduced to two mangled, unrecognizable heaps of pulp. Stella went rigid with shock. Mr. Hale broke down crying. Mrs. Hale fainted dead away. And inside my chest, I smiled. In my past life, Ethan had run to save Stella. I'd known what a truck that size could dolos a limb at best, die on the spot at worst. I didn't want him throwing his life or his future away for some adopted girl, so I'd clung to him with everything I had. He couldn't break free of my grip, and could only watch as the truck crushed both of Stella's legs. He'd stared at the scene, wildeed and broken with grief, hearing Stella's howls of pain. He'd kicked me square in the chest, sending me flying several feet. When Mr. and Mrs. Hale arrived, they rushed Stella straight to the hospital. I was left lying on the curb, no one caring if I lived or died. A kind stranger had given me a ride to the hospital in the end. At the hospital, when word came that Stella's legs had to be amputated, my brother beat me within an inch of my life all over again. That was the day I regretted ever stopping him from saving her. But there was no going back. In the days that followed, footage of me holding my brother back surfaced online. I was torn apart by thousands of strangers, doxxed, and pelted with rotten eggs in the street. At school, every single student shunned me, excluded me, bullied me relentlessly. During all this, Stella woke up to find her legs gone. She'd never dance again. Her dream of becoming a principal ballerina was shattered, and she couldn't bear it. She killed herself. That night, my brother sobbed hysterically, grabbed a baseball bat, and swore he'd make me pay with blood. Strike after strike, he personally broke both my legs, screaming, "You worthless bitch, if you hadn't stopped me, Stella would still have her legs. She never would have killed herself. This is all your fault." I was snotty and crying, begging him to understand. "I stopped you because I didn't want you to die saving her. That truck weighs tons. There was no way it could stop in time. If you died and I hadn't stopped you, I would have regretted it forever. Why can't you see I was trying to protect you?" My brother's eyes blazed red as he roared back, "You'd regret it. You think I wouldn't regret letting her die right in front of me? I'm not some heartless animal who'd watch a person get run over and do nothing. Stella's the sister I grew up with, the one I've loved my whole life. You've never known what real family feels like. You cold, unfeeling monster. You could never understand what we have." The words hit me like 1,000 needles to the heart. He was right. I'd been swapped at birth by Stella's mother and left in the foster system. When I finally came home, my parents either ignored me or looked down on me for being unrefined, for acting like I didn't belong. They loved the poised, graceful adopted daughter far more. Scared and lonely, I'd always kept my distance, terrified of getting in their way. Of course I couldn't understand their bond. I'd never been allowed to be part of this family. My chest ached. But my legs hurt worse. Ethan didn't stop until he'd shattered both my legs. He left me there alone. I cried and begged my parents to take me to a hospital. Instead, they slapped me dozens more times, ground their heels into my broken legs, and pressed down hard. I screamed in agony as they stared down at me with disgust. You have no right to meddle in our family's business. If you hadn't stopped Ethan from saving Stella, our family wouldn't be falling apart. Don't pretend you did this for him. You were just jealous that she had the life you wanted. You wanted her gone. If we'd known what you were, we never would have taken you back from that group home. Stella is our only daughter. You're a cruel, poisonous thing. You should have died in her place. They dragged me deep into the mountain woods and left me there to die, as wild dogs tore into my flesh and I bled out in agony. Their words looped in my head. They'd carved themselves into my soul, festering into a bitter, burning grudge. Reborn. I'd learned my lesson. I wouldn't be the cold-blooded monster they called me anymore. I'd let them have their precious family bond. Let my brother trade both his arms for Stella's legs. I wanted to see just how deep that family love went when he couldn't feed himself, couldn't dress himself, couldn't even use the bathroom on his own, when he was nothing but a burden. How long would their affection last? The truck driver climbed out to check the damage. I hurried over, putting on a performance of utter devastation as I wailed over my brother. Ethan. Hold on. I called an ambulance. They'll be here any second. Gone was his usual calm, cocky demeanor. His handsome face was twisted white with agony. Hearing my voice, Stella snapped out of her shock and stepped forward to check on him. I shoved her away hard, tears streaming down my face as I sobbed. Stella, I know you hate me for coming back here, for taking your place. If it makes you happy, hit me. Yell at me, I'll take it. I'll even leave if that's what you want. But you didn't have to run off into the road like this. Look what you did to your brother. If anything happens to him, what are we going to do? He's Mom and Dad's only son. Stella tried to defend herself, but the words stuck in her throat. My shove sent her stumbling backward onto the pavement. Shards of gravel and broken glass sliced into her pale thigh, drawing blood. As a dancer, her legs were the most precious thing in the world to her family. If this had been any other day, touching Stella like this would have earned me a slap across the face from both parents. But right now, their beloved son was broken. They didn't have a second to spare for her. Mr. Hale had just roused Mrs. Hale from her faint when they both threw themselves at Ethan's side, sobbing, "My boy, hold on, the doctors are coming." Mrs. Hale wailed, her voice raw with grief, like she'd trade places with him if she could. Mr. Hale's jaw was tight, silent tears tracking down his cheeks. Stella stared at the scene before it clicked. She shook her head wildly. I didn't mean to hurt him. It was an accident. She got to her feet and walked over to them, leaning in for comfort, for validation. Mr. Hale subtly pushed her back down to the ground. Mrs. Hale didn't even glance at her. All her attention was on their son. Soon the paramedics arrived and lifted Ethan onto a stretcher. As they moved him, the last of the torn flesh and sinew holding his arms to his body gave way. The last trace of his dignity was stripped away. Watching his own arms be severed before his eyes, Ethan couldn't take it. He screamed once more and passed out cold. The whole family piled into the ambulance, crying. Only stunned, dazed Stella was left behind. She was still reeling, wondering why Mr. Hale had pushed her. Why had their feelings toward her shifted so completely in just 10 minutes? She didn't snap out of it until the doors were about to slam shut. Mom, Dad, wait for me. Stella ran after the ambulance as fast as she could. She twisted her ankle mid-chase, limping and sobbing as she struggled to keep up. Her cries faded into the wind. The doors slid shut right as she tripped and fell to the pavement. Mr. and Mrs. Hale didn't move to help. They both looked away, pointedly. In that moment, I saw it clearly. There was resentment in their eyes. Resentment toward her. Ethan was rushed into emergency surgery. The doctor told us his arms couldn't be saved. Mrs. Hale fainted again at the news. By the time Stella had her own leg bandaged up and hurried to the hospital, the surgery was already over. Ethan was still unconscious. The sleeves of his hospital gown lay flat and empty against the sheets. The room was dead silent, save for Mrs. Hale's quiet sobs. I caught sight of Stella hovering in the doorway out of the corner of my eye. I smirked to myself, then stepped closer to my parents. Mom, Dad, you should eat something. You'll wear yourselves out. I handed them food I'd picked up, putting on a gentle, concerned face. For the first time in 18 years, they really looked at me, like they were finally remembering they had a biological daughter who could be there for them when it mattered. Not that they had much of an appetite right now. Their only son, the heir to the Hale family company, had lost both his arms. They had no idea what the future held, and it terrified them. Mrs. Hale's eyes were red and puffy as she pushed the food away. I'm not hungry. You eat. Mr. Hale just shook his head, his brow furrowed deep. Stella, watching me talk to them from the doorway, finally worked up the courage to speak. Her voice was small. Dad, Mom, Mr. and Mrs. Hale acted like they hadn't heard her. They glanced her way for half a second, then turned back to their grief. The deliberate coldness hung thick in the air. Stella didn't know what to do with herself. She couldn't stay, but she didn't dare leave. She could feel the resentment rolling off them in waves. She'd gotten their son's arms crushed. She knew she was in the wrong, but she hadn't meant to do it. The thought made her chest tight, and she started crying quietly. Mr. and Mrs. Hale heard her sobs and clenched their jaws. There was no pity in their faces at all. I stood off to the side, watching it all unfold with cold detachment. Oh, so they didn't want me stopping Ethan from saving her. They called me a cold-blooded monster for meddling. Aren't you the perfect, loving family? What's wrong now? Your son got exactly what he wanted. Why are you blaming the other daughter? Turns out it's not just me. You rank your own children by how useful they are. 2. How ironic. It was chilling, how quickly love turned to resentment. Stella cried until she had no tears left, and still no one comforted her. She couldn't stop her shoulders from shaking. Stella, don't cry. Ethan woke up. The first thing he did was comfort her. Mr. and Mrs. Hale rushed to ask how he was feeling. I'm fine, Mom, Dad. Stop blaming Stella. I chose to save her. It was my call. Mr. and Mrs. Hale exchanged a look. I raised an eyebrow, waiting for the show to start. Looks like he still hasn't realized what losing both arms actually means. Ethan, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Stella hurried to his side, relieved to have someone on her side. Hey, don't cry, little crybaby. Did you get hurt anywhere? Ethan gazed at her with that same fond, indulgent look he'd always had. Stella shook her head. Ugh, what devoted siblings, I thought, watching from the sidelines. They talked for hours, late into the night. Finally, since we had school the next day, they said their reluctant goodbyes. Back at the house, Stella knew Mr. and Mrs. Hale were furious with her, smart enough to read the room. She mumbled a greeting and bolted straight upstairs. I stayed with my parents, fussed over them. I had the housekeeper bring them warm chamomile tea and straighten up the sitting room, and said gently, "Don't wear yourselves out. Things will get better." They nodded and patted my shoulder. You too, get some sleep. The SATs are coming up. Study hard. Before, they'd never cared about my grades at all. I glanced down the hall at Stella's door, then at Ethan's empty room. Of course, with 2 of their children now useless to them, it was only smart to start being nice to the third. Over the next few days, Mr. and Mrs. Hale hired a caregiver to look after Ethan. After after-school study sessions, Stella and I went to visit him at the hospital. Stella walked in chattering away about all the fun things happening at school, completely oblivious to the way Ethan was shifting uncomfortably. His legs pressed tight together, his face tight with strain. I knew exactly what was wrong, needed to use the bathroom, but his pride wouldn't let him look weak or helpless in front of Stella. Fine by me. I kept my mouth shut and let him suffer through it. Our senior prom is in 3 weeks. Stella went on. You'll be out of the hospital by then. Right. You should come. She was still talking when Ethan suddenly threw back the covers and tried to get out of bed. He couldn't hold it any longer. He stumbled toward the bathroom, fumbling to get his pants down with no hands. Warm urine trickled down his leg, pooling in a dark puddle on the tile floor. The sharp, acrid smell of ammonia filled the room. Stella took an automatic step back. That tiny, Disgusted movement cut Ethan deeper than any insult. His face burned with shame and humiliation. It's getting late. You two should go home. Stella opened her mouth to say something, but he cut her off. Seriously. You've got the SATs to study for. Don't come back for the next month. I don't want to distract you. Ms. Page, show them out. He made it sound like he was doing them a favor. But he had the caregiver usher us out and lock the door behind us. Stella banged on the door a few times. When no one answered, she turned and left. I was about to follow when I heard a roar of rage and raw, broken sobbing from inside the room. I smiled to myself, satisfied. And that was just one tiny, embarrassing incident. It was already driving a wedge between them. Wait until he got home. Wait until he went back to school. Then he'd learn what real cruelty felt like. 3 weeks later, Ethan was discharged. The family threw him a welcome home dinner. The table was quiet. Mr. and Mrs. Hale looked at him with heartsick pity, too afraid to mention his arms. Stella acted like nothing had happened, just like always. She piled smoked pork ribs onto his plate. Eat more. Ethan, they're good for healing. She was smiling bright, like the accident had never happened. Ethan's face was blank. The maid carefully lifted a piece of rib to his mouth, and he ate it. They'd both given each other an out. Saved each other a little face. I understood. After more than 10 years together, they still had feelings for each other. I just wondered how long those feelings would hold out. I kept eating my food, seizing her chance. Stella begged him to come to the high school graduation ceremony the next day. Please come. That girl you like is gonna be there. If you don't go, you might never see her again after we graduate. She wheedled and cajoled until he finally caved. I sat there silent, saying nothing. If I remembered right, in my past life, Stella had come home from that same prom completely broken, and killed herself not long after. Now the roles were reversed. I was curious to see how Ethan would handle it. The next day, the graduation performances were in full swing. This time, Stella's legs were fine. She took the stage and danced like she was born to it, glowing under the lights. When her number ended, the crowd erupted in applause. She ran off stage to find Ethan. What did you think? Was I good? Ethan didn't answer. He was staring past her at the stage. And right on cue, the next act was announced. Next up, a duet from Lindsay Carter and Gavin Reed. At the name, Stella went completely quiet. Gavin Reed was Ethan's worst enemy and his rival for Lindsay's attention. I glanced sideways at Ethan. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. He was grinding his teeth so hard they might crack. If he hadn't saved Stella, he'd be the one up there performing with Lindsay right now. In that moment, I knew he was drowning in regret. Someone nearby whispered, I heard Lindsay and Gavin are dating. They make such a perfect couple. Ethan heard it. He flicked a glance at the pair, and his eyes went ice cold. I shook my head. That was brutal. He didn't just lose his arms. He lost his shot at love, too. Good. He deserved it. After what he did to me in my last life, I wished he'd drop dead right then and there. This was just the start of his suffering. I made a mental note of all the ways I could make it worse. Before the show ended, Ethan said he wanted to go home. Stella called after him. Wait. There's the after party still. Everyone's just gossiping, half of it's not even true. Don't you want to talk to Lindsay yourself? He hesitated, then agreed. This was going to be good. Stella was practically dragging him over to get humiliated. I could already tell after tonight, whatever bond they had left would be gone for good. Everyone moved to the after-party venue. Stella wheeled Ethan right over to Lindsay, then vanished. I found a quiet corner and watched from the shadows. No sooner had Stella left than Ethan leaned in to talk to Lindsay and someone shoved him hard to the ground. Gavin Red slung an arm around Lindsay's shoulders and sneered down at him. What are you doing so close to my girlf? Re-end. Freak. Ethan looked up and saw his worst enemy. He pushed himself up, face twisted with rage. Bullshit. When did she become your girlfriend? She promised me we'd get together after graduation. Gavin just laughed and poured a full glass of red wine right over Ethan's head. The liquid ran down his face, soaking his shirt, leaving him soaked and humiliated. Get over yourself. Gavin scoffed. You think she'd date you? The second that truck crushed your arms, you lost any right to chase her. Look at you, Ethan Hale. You're nothing now. Must suck. Huh, you wanna hit me? Go on. Too bad you don't have any hands to hit with. He taunted him, then shoved him down again. The other students stared, murmuring, "Yikes. That's the former school heartthrob. No arms. That's sad. But why even go over there if he knew he'd get roasted?" Lindsay knelt down a little, her voice gentle but firm. "Ethan. Just go home. I'm sorry, but you know my parents would never let me be with someone in your condition." All those voices pitying, sympathetic, cruel burned into Ethan's ears like hot oil. He lay on the floor, staring up at every single person there. No one stood up for him. No one told Gavin he was going too far. Not even the girls who'd used to obsess over him. And all it took was losing his arms for every single one of them to turn on him. Worst of all, Stella was nowhere to be found. I shook my head. Pathetic. And he deserved every second of it. I set down my glass. Time for me to step in. I pulled out my phone and hit play on the video I'd recorded. Gavin's sneering voice boomed out across the whole room. Everyone turned to look. "Apologize to my brother," I said calmly, "or I'm calling the police." "Ivy Carter, who do you think you are?" Gavin sneered at me. I didn't flinch. Assault and battery gets you 5 to 10 days in jail, from what I hear. The SATs are in 8 days. If you want your parents to come bail you out of a holding cell, be my guest. You can apologize from there. I held up my phone, finger hovering over the call button. Gavin realized I wasn't bluffing. He didn't want this blowing up. He spat out a quick "sorry, happy now," and stormed off with Lindsay. The crowd dispersed once the main event was over. I grabbed a napkin and wiped the wine off Ethan's head. That was when Stella came hurrying back. She scrambled to help him up. Ethan shoved her away with his whole body, his voice raw and furious. "Get away from me." Back at home, Ethan locked himself in his room. He refused to eat or drink. When the maid knocked to call him, she got a furious "Get out. All of you. Get out," followed by the sound of him kicking the door over and over. The maid ran off. Scared, Mrs. Hale herself brought food up to him. He kicked the tray out of her hands. Soup and rice spilled all over the floor. Mr. Hale stormed up and yelled at him. "Look at yourself. This is pathetic." Ethan said nothing. His pride had been shattered into a million pieces. The NIGHT. His whole world had caved in. Stella tried to soothe him. "Ethan, you have to eat. You'll make yourself sick. I'm sorry about tonight. It was my fault." She stepped closer, and he kicked her hard in the stomach, sending her flying. "This is all your fault," he snarled, his voice hoarse. "You selfish little brat. If it wasn't for you, I never would have been humiliated like that." Stella cried out in pain, curled up on the floor. I spoke up, calm and steady. "Ethan, you need to eat. Mom and Dad care about you. Unlike me." I thought. Unlike when they'd crushed my broken legs and left me in the woods for the dogs. Care about me. What's the point when I don't have hands anymore? What's the point of being alive? He shrieked. I looked him dead in the eye. "If you're alive, there's still hope. The family can take care of you. Or are you saying you want to die?" Mrs. Hale snapped at me. "Don't say that." But Mr. Hale held her back. Ethan shook his head. "Then eat," I said flatly. I told the maid to bring a fresh tray. I fed him myself. He ate. And he cried the whole time. Cry all you want, I thought. You haven't seen anything yet. When he finished eating, Mr. and Mrs. Hale asked me what had happened that night. I told them every last detail. Stella got screamed at and lectured all over again. They even slapped her across the face a few times, holding her red, stinging cheek. She ran crying to her room. That was it. Whatever sibling bond they'd had was completely broken. There was no coming back from this. After that day, Ethan ate and drank like normal, but he was a shell of himself. He kept the curtains in his room drawn tight. No sunlight ever getting in. He never left the house. He just lay in bed all day, sleeping and eating. His days and nights flipped completely around. Sometimes he was too lazy to call for the maid, so he'd just relieve himself right there in bed. Feces and urine soaked through the white sheets, caking his clothes. The whole room reeked. If the maid so much as made a face when she cleaned it up, even if it wasn't disgust, scream at her to get out. In 1 week, He went through 18 different maids. The more people he had to interact with, the angrier and more volatile he got. He was terrified of going outside, terrified of seeing other people. He was convinced everyone was looking down on him. Every flicker of pity, every sympathetic glance, every look of disgust reminded him of that night at the prom, of the utter humiliation. And every time he thought about that humiliation, he thought about who was to blame. If he hadn't saved Stella, if Stella hadn't dragged him to that party, none of this would have happened. Resentment curdled into hatred. When someone pays a terrible price for another person, they start to feel owed. The person who was saved has to be grateful, has to worship them, to make up for everything they lost. But Stella wasn't grateful. If anything, she'd made it worse. Hatred ate away at him from the inside out. Every time he saw Stella, he beat her viciously to let out his anger. Mr. and Mrs. Hale looked the other way. The maids, seeing which way the wind was blowing, started picking on Stella too. Stella wasn't bright and bubbly anymore. She was skittish, quiet, insecure. The spoiled little princess had turned into a scared, beaten down stray. In a weird way, she'd become me. But even that wasn't enough to satisfy Ethan's rage. Sometimes, when his temper snapped completely, he'd smash everything he owned. His beloved violin, he'd stepped on it until the body cracked. The strings snapped. The wood splintered. His favorite sports racket made the maid cut the strings and bend the frame until it was useless. All the gifts, the letters, the little trinkets from his admirers and from Lindsay destroyed every last one of them. Even his school books, his trophies, his certificate, she made the maid tear them up one by one and burn them to ash. Gray ash drifted through the air of his bedroom. And he felt powerful. He felt alive. His parents saw it and despaired. They tried to give him something to do, to teach him how to run the family company. Ethan just laughed bitterly. What's the point? I can't even sign my own name. My hands are gone. He'd even tear up important company documents just for the hell of it. It was like he was determined to destroy every last trace of the proud, talented boy he'd been, to separate himself completely from that life. Mrs. Hale worried and fussed over him. Mr. Hale just shook his head. His son was broken beyond repair. Stella hid in her room, staying out of his way. Ethan was trapped in his own head, wallowing in his own misery. Day after day, night after night, while he cried about how unfair life was, I smiled and studied for the SATs, planning my next move. Stella and I finished our exams. Ethan had moped around for 2 weeks when he finally decided to go out and see his friends. Mr. and Mrs. Hale thought he was finally turning a corner. They had no idea he'd been gone for days, coming home at all hours, brushing off their questions. The next time they heard from him, it was a call from the police. He'd gotten hooked on hard drugs. He was being detained. Mr. and Mrs. Hale bailed him out and brought him home. Once they got inside, Mr. Hale yelled at him and slapped him around. Stella and I sat on the couch, watching. When Ethan saw Stella, something in him snapped. He charged at her and kicked her hard. You ruined my life. Why do you get to be happy? Stella hit the floor, then snapped. She launched herself at him, kicking his legs out from under him and pinning him down, hitting him again and again across the face. Great kindness breeds great hatred. Weeks of being his punching bag had broken her. You never had to save me, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. You chose to. This is all your own fault. I'm so sick of you blaming me for everything. I hate this stupid family. Mrs. Hale heard that and slapped her across the face. Hard. I always knew it. Blood will tell. You can raise someone else's kid for years and they'll still turn out ungrateful. A real wolf in sheep's clothing. Stella shot right back. Who wants your stupid money? If you knew I wasn't yours, why didn't you throw me out sooner? You kept me around because I was good at things, didn't you? You treated your own real daughter like garbage for years. You're just a selfish old hag who only cares about what's useful to you. Don't worry, I'm leaving. You don't have to kick me out. She stood up and stormed toward the front door. Mr. Hale grabbed her arm, furious, ready to hit her again. Try it, she said, voice sharp and steady. Hit me once, and I'll tell everyone every dirty little secret about this family. Mr. Hale froze. He let go of her arm, Get out. Gladly. She said. I'm never coming back. Stella walked out of the Hale house for good, with nothing but the clothes on her back. If Mr. and Mrs. Hale hadn't been standing right there, I would have applauded. After that fight, Stella was gone. And Ethan refused to come down for meals. Dinner was awkward, quiet. Sometimes Mrs. Hale would try to make small talk with me. Be nice. I'd go along with it. Say all the right things. And she'd light up. When Mr. Hale took calls about company business, I'd chime in with my own thoughts. After a few conversations like that, Mr. Hale realized I had a knack for business. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, he praised me. Why didn't I see this before? You're my daughter. After all, takes after me. You've got a real head for this. You're gonna go far. My hand stilled mid-bite. Inside, I laughed bitterly. I was never stupid. The foster system was brutal. You had to be the best to survive. I'd always been top 10 in the entire state. When I came to the Hale house, I'd acted small, quiet, unsure of myself because I'd wanted their love so badly. Because I'd been dazzled by all the fancy jewels and nice things. I'd been so starved for affection that I'd dimmed my own light just to fit in. It didn't matter anymore. I'd never make that mistake again. I met his gaze calmly. Thank you, Dad. I'll work hard. Dinner didn't feel so heavy anymore. The 3 of us ate in relative peace until we heard a loud thud from upstairs, followed by the sound of slamming into walls. Ethan was having another episode. He was slamming his own head into the walls, biting his arms until they bled, screaming for drugs. His parents couldn't handle it. They held him down and called a doctor to give him a sedative. The doctor examined him, prescribed a handful of antipsychotics and mood stabilizers, and told them to make sure he took them on schedule. After a few days on the meds, Ethan calmed down a lot. His parents relaxed, thinking things were getting better. They had no idea that at 3 in the morning, Ethan jumped out of the second-story window. The maid found him and called an ambulance. Terrified. At the hospital, the doctors said he'd suffered severe head trauma. His mood was even more unstable now. And he'd broken one of his legs in the fall. He thrashed around in his hospital bed, screaming for drugs and screaming that he'd kill Stella. Looking at their son, raving and completely broken, his parents' hearts turned cold. Long illness wears out even the most devoted child, and the same is true in reverse. There's no such thing as endless family love, only endless utility. They decided to give up on Ethan completely. They started grooming me to take over. They brought me to the office, showed me how the company ran, taught me how to manage teams, plan strategy, expand business, allocate resources, make big decisions. In just a couple of weeks, everyone in the company knew I was the new heir. No one mentioned Ethan anymore. The day my college acceptance letter arrived, they threw me a huge graduation celebration banquet. They invited all their business associates, formally introducing me as the heir to the Hale empire. They walked me around the room, introducing me to CEOs and moguls, making sure I knew all the right people. I spoke to them all with poise and confidence. Pleasantries were exchanged, compliments traded. Everyone was having a lovely time. Dad, you didn't tell me my sister was having a party today. Why didn't you invite me? Ethan appeared out of nowhere. They'd kept his accident completely hushed up. No one outside the family knew. All the wealthy guests stared at him, at his missing arms, at his wild, unhinged expression, and whispered among themselves, "What are you doing here?" Mr. Hale hissed, his jaw tight. "Go home, now, sweetheart. Please, just go home first." Mrs. Hale pleaded. Ethan just stood there, refusing to move. I could see my parents panic, see them losing face in front of everyone. I lifted my wine glass, smiling. "Thank you for coming, Ethan. I'm glad you're here to celebrate with me. Cheers." Ethan blinked, caught off guard, not wanting to make a scene in front of all these people. He grudgingly took a sip. The other guests jumped in to smooth things over, and the party stumbled on, thick with awkward tension. When we got home, Ethan kicked the couch so hard it shifted. He screamed at the top of his lungs, "What the hell is this? You worthless pieces of shit. I'm broken, so you're just gonna give the company to her, is that it?" He raved and roared and screamed insults, cursing his own parents and every relative he could think of. Mr. and Mrs. Hale's faces went cold with anger. He refused to learn the business, refused to get better, but still thought he was entitled to everything. There was no reasoning with him. They exchanged a single look. The staff rushed forward, stuck a sedative needle right into his neck, and carried him up to his room. When it was time for his medication, I told the maid to hand them to me. I'd take them up myself. I opened the door. Ethan was awake, staring at me with dark, bitter eyes. Feeling pretty proud of yourself today, huh? I smiled, soft and sweet. I don't want to take the company from you, Ethan. I'm just going in first to learn how everything works. When you're better, I'll be your assistant. I'll help you run it. He hesitated, suspicious. Really? I held out the pills and a glass of water, leaning into the lie. Really? What would a girl like me do running a whole company? Anyway, you just focus on getting better. Show mom and dad you can still be the man you were. They'll come around. That's more like it, he said, and swallowed all the pills in one go. I closed the door behind me, and my smile dropped. Of course I was going to take it. All of it. Who said a woman couldn't run an empire? You think you deserve what's mine, Ethan? Then don't blame me when I send you to hell even faster. The next morning, I walked into the dining room. Stella was there, practicing ballet. She spun and leaped, smiling bright. She really did love dancing. When she finished her shift at the studio, I stopped her outside. Let's talk. Coffee shop down the street. She followed me. She fidgeted with her coffee cup the whole time. Nervous. I spoke calmly, evenly. Relax. I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to warn you. Ethan's losing his mind up there. He keeps saying he's gonna kill you. You should get out of town. Far away. Sooner or later, he'll come after you. Stella paled. But I don't have any money. How can I leave? I pulled out a bank card and slid it across the table. Quit your job. There's $1 million in there. Take it. Go to a college far away. Start over. Stella stared down at the table. Why are you helping me? I twisted my car key around my finger. I thought about it. Should I tell her that seeing her get kicked around made me remember what it was like to be her? That I wanted to help the scared, helpless girl I used to be? In the end, I just said, the worst thing you ever did to me was run off and be dramatic. I don't hate you that much. If I hate anyone, it's the rest of this family. This isn't your fault. Not really. When I went by her apartment and her studio the next day, she was gone. I put on my sunglasses and moved on to the next step of my plan. After a few more days on his medication, Ethan's mental state got worse, not better. I could hear him through the walls laughing 1 minute, crying the next, rambling to himself at the top of his lungs. Stella, you ruined me. You took my arms. I'll kill you. He kicked the bathroom mirror until it shattered. The sound echoed through the whole house. He dragged his broken leg across the floor, muttering and snarling, blood smearing across the sheets, the walls. When his parents came in, he was still ranting, his voice rising and falling. I'm gonna run this company. Anyone who tries to stop me, I'll kill them. They cleaned him up, and immediately he'd cling to them, sobbing, Dad, Mom, I'm gonna get better. The company has to be mine. Promise me it's mine. Promise me. He shouted the last part, and they flinched. They soothed him. We know. Just rest. Okay. Ethan would settle back, satisfied, and mumble to himself over and over. In the middle of the night, he got up to get a drink of water. That was when he heard Mr. Hale talking quietly to Mrs. Hale. Ethan's insane. He's useless. If I hand the company over to him, everything I built will be gone. And what about us? Who's gonna take care of us when we're old? Look at him. I'm scared one day he'll snap and kill us both in our sleep. We need to put him in a psychiatric facility. Lock him up somewhere safe. That's the only way I'll sleep at night. I watched through the security cameras as Ethan stood there, listening. He didn't get his water. He just turned around and went back to his room. A storm was coming, and I was going to be ready. For the next 3 months, I went to classes and worked out every day. In my free time, I learned every corner of the company. I made decisions, put plans into action. The market responded well. Mr. Hale was impressed. He started leaving more and more of the business in my hands. They decided to retire, move abroad, Never come back. Have fun over there, Mom and Dad, I said, waving them off at the airport. I was practically buzzing with excitement, but just as I'd predicted, before they could even get on the plane, they were kidnapped. If you want your parents alive, you bring the money, $100 million. No cops. You come alone. Ethan's cold, sneering voice came through the phone. I kept him talking, calm, while I hired a private investigator to track him down. I don't have that much. I've got $5 million. I can get the rest. Just give me time. Don't hurt them, you old bastards. I heard Ethan snarl off to the side. Tell her where the money is. Mr. Hale's voice was shaking. He gave me the safe combination. All the bank account numbers. Every single place they'd hidden their wealth. Everything. Good. I said, I'll bring it in 3 days. I hung up and got the money ready. 3 days later, I put on a bold red lipstick and boarded the boat alone. The sea wind whipped my coat around me. I scanned the deck. Just as I'd expected, only 2 people, Ethan and some goon he'd hired. Where are Mom and Dad? Ethan grinned, holding up his phone to show me a video. Those old fools are already dead. You'll never have their love now. Never. He'd already killed them. Saved me the trouble. Honestly, I nodded. Completely calm. Thank you. Ethan shot to his feet. The hell is that supposed to mean? Calm down, I said, pulling out a chair and sitting down across from him. Let's talk. I never liked Mom and Dad. You getting rid of them works for me. Also, they signed over all their shares, amended the bylaws, got the board to approve it. I'm chairwoman of the company now. Full control. Ethan laughed, bitter and angry. So you're just here to gloat. Rub it in my face that you won. I tapped my fingers on the table. Keep listening. That friend of yours who got you into drugs. I hired him. Those antipsychotics you've been taking, I swapped them out for something worse. That conversation you heard between Mom and Dad. I made sure you heard it. All of it. Ethan slammed his stumps down on the table. He looked like he wanted to rip my throat out. You evil, twisted bitch. Why would you do this to me? You should be the one who's dead. I spread my hands, helpless, because in my last life, I saved you, and you broke my legs for it. What are you talking about? He stared, confused and horrified. Last time around, I held you back. I didn't let you run after Stella. You would have lost your arms. But you screamed at me, called me a monster. Said I had no heart. Said Stella was your precious little sister. And then you broke both my legs. I begged Mom and Dad for help. They called me poisonous. Said I wasn't worthy of being their daughter. They dumped me in the woods and let wild dogs tear me apart. So this time, I did what you wanted. I didn't be the cold-blooded monster. I let you make your own choices. And now you're insane. And our parents are dead. Honestly, I think it's perfect. It's what you all deserve. Karma. I said that last word slow, sharp, heavy. Ethan doubled over, moaning in pain. No, that's not real. You're lying. You're making it up. He mumbled it to himself, over and over. Then he looked up, eyes wild, completely unhinged. I'll kill you. You got to come back. Why can't I? Shoot her. He yelled at his goon. The guy must have been too busy listening to the drama. He didn't react fast enough. I kicked his wrist hard, sending the gun flying across the deck. I pulled out my own weapon and moved fast. Blood splattered across my face. I smiled. Ethan tried to charge at me, headbutt me, anything. No hands. And you think you can fight me? I kicked him as hard as I could. Right in the chest, payback for the kick he'd given me all those years ago. I pulled the trigger and blew his brains out. He died staring, wide-eyed, uncomprehending. I smirked. Remember, villains die because they can't stop talking. Messy. Emotional idiots never win. I opened the hatch on the side of the boat and dumped the bodies and the guns overboard into the deep ocean. When I got back to shore, I had people take care of the loose ends. I sold my shares in the company, took every last cent the Hales had built over decades, and boarded a plane out of the country. The moment I stepped out of the airport, the bright, blazing sun hit my face. I put on my sunglasses and walked forward, head held high. A life of wealth and freedom. I was coming for it.